What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be working on the Buick engine. Now, if I happen to be looking at you this direction, I'm like blinded. It's because that's one of the light fixtures right there, and it's very bright. So it gives you guys a really good perspective, not perspective, but good lighting. So hey, whatever. On this side, we still need this manifold to come off. This one right here, this one right here is broken just from the heat expansion of the manifold. This one right here, this one right here, and this one right here have to come out. I pulled this one out because I needed a bolt to go and check the size of the nuts that I needed. It's actually sitting over there. And the other ones are at the shop, so I'm not going to reuse them anyways. So today, it's how do you get rid of these pesky, notorious bolts that love to break in these LS heads. And I mean, you don't want to get to the point where it's sheared off on the block, because that would suck, because you have to drill it, and hopefully an easy out will get it out. But you know, you have your water jacket right here, so you start drilling at this thing, there's a good chance you're going to screw up your water jacket, and these heads are going to be nothing more than junk. So be very careful about that. They're expensive to replace. So we are not, well, my plans aren't to reuse these particular heads, but it'd be nice to clean them up. Maybe we can sell them for a couple $100. I really don't know how much this particular set of heads would go for, if really anything. But if I can't find, I think I'm looking for $7.99 or the 243s. If I can't find one of those heads, we're probably going to do a full port and polish on these things, and we're going to do some heavy porting on the actual tops so that we get rid of the cathedral and go to more of a rectangular, which would be, I really want to avoid that. Not that I don't think I can do it. It's just a matter of, it's got to be very time consuming. Very time consuming. Because you can't just tear at it. You got to get it perfect. You know, with fluid dynamics, there's very little room for errors. That's why using manufactured ones, the way they are, maybe cleaning up a little bit, because believe it or not, I know a lot of people like to make it so that when you port and polish, those things are just like shiny, and you don't want to always do that. Sometimes having a little bit of turbulence within the actual inlet for the air will help actually mix the fuel and air ratio. So sometimes you don't really want it to be perfectly smooth for airflow. You really do need some turbulence, and that's why your geometry from the manufacturer is done very specifically. So yes, doing some porting and polishing, as well as, more importantly, just getting rid of casting imperfections, which, I mean, I haven't really looked over these blocks, but what I've seen so far, these LS blocks and heads are very well made. I don't really see any imperfections like I did on the old Buick. The old Buick block, there was imperfections everywhere. So we're probably only going to need to really just deburr it and put chamfers on things. So other than that, these are really good engines. I actually never thought I would do an LS swap. Never thought I would. But here I am. Just never say never, I suppose. We gotta get to this. So let's go ahead, pop those off, and it's gonna be pretty straightforward. So the very first thing we're gonna want to do is clean these threads up. I was just kind of looking at it, and I would be very surprised if I can fit 2 nuts on each one of these bolts and actually have enough thread for the second one to actually hold the first one. So I have a feeling we're going to end up welding each one of these things, which is actually works really well. You put the penetrant oil on here, you put these things on there after you clean up the threads, and then once this is all nice and clean, you put it on, weld it to it, and that will actually heat cycle the bolt and hopefully break it free. If it doesn't, we'll go ahead and try heating it up a couple more times and giving her some light taps. With the aluminum and steel being different metals, that actually causes a serious issue in between them. Not terrible, but still something. So the very first thing we're going to do is go ahead, put some penetrant oil on here, which works really nice, so that while we're hitting these things with the wire brush, which this is a nice stainless steel one, so it's not as hard as a hard carbon steel one, and will be a little bit less harsh on the surrounding metals. So let's get these cleaned up. Once they're cleaned up, we'll put these on. Once I have all 3 on, we'll hit them with the welder. Then we'll go to the other side and do the same thing, hopefully with only 2 broken bolts, not 3. But it's early in the game yet, so let's not let's not count our ducks before they hatch. All right, so everything on this build so far has kind of been the opposite of lucky. And in this kind of like strike of pure luck, the two nuts actually managed to pull the bolt out, or what was left of the bolt. So we'll go ahead and take these out. We'll try doing the same thing on this one. However, this, as you can see, is not even really enough for one of these. So that's definitely gonna have to be welded on and broken free that way. But hey, I will take whatever luck I can get. We haven't had a lot of that lately. So without anything else to do, we just got to keep chugging along at it. So no such luck on this one. So we are going to go ahead and back it out a little bit more. Pardon me. Once we back it out a little bit further, just enough to have a nice spot for us to actually, you know what, we'll tighten it down first. I need to clean up this so that we get a good penetrate weld and not just a surface one. And I have a feeling with the current condition that rust right there will prevent us from getting a nice weld. So we'll go ahead, clean up the front of that, clean up the front of that, put the other nut on this one right here, which I'll be very happy if I can, and then we'll hit it with the welder. Well, we'll back this out. You want to have it a nice almost V around the actual center of the bolt and the nut. Now I understand a lot of you guys probably don't have welders. I don't. I'm borrowing this from my brother, but you could pick up for this application. It doesn't have to be pretty welds. Like the welder that I'm using, there's a couple of features that didn't come from the manufacturer, and we'll have to remedy before we get to the point of really progressing with the frame and stuff. So you can use a Harbor Freight welder for this. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just has to make a good weld. It doesn't have to be pretty. So we'll go ahead and clean it up. Once I clean it up, we'll get back here and put a weld on it. Well, hopefully the weld holds and we can get this one off. And if it does, you just have to do it a couple more times. Hopefully not too many. So I definitely have some like feed issues and penetration issues. I don't know, I'll have to play it. I used, when I was in college, I took auto body restoration as an elective. I also took welding as an elective. I had a lot of fun doing it. But we also used, you know, 240 millers, so totally different animal than this. Also, that was 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. So it's been a while since I rock and rolled on one of these things, and I do enjoy welding. I don't know, for you guys that do it for a career, there's an art to welding that, God bless you. Everyone that says it's not an art, they're a damn fool. But obviously that one worked well enough to get this out, and it doesn't look like I pulled any of the aluminum out with it, so that's awesome. You just got to do this next one, and I'm not going to put that on the wooden surface. I don't know how hot it is, but go ahead and take this one out. Once this one's taken out, we'll go to the other side, and hopefully we can pull everything off without causing more of these to shear off. All right, with how deep this one is, I really hope that I was able to get enough penetration on the actual bolt. I wasn't. I'm not able to get enough onto this. I don't even think I'm catching any of the threads. I think we're gonna have to do a different route for this guy right here. So I guess we're gonna have to come back to that one. I just can't get purchase on it. All right, guys, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side because it wanted to be extra. So what we're gonna have to end up doing here is, fortunately these guys are a lot further out than the other ones, so we might be able to put 2 bolts on each and pull it out. But this one right here looks like it's gonna be pretty rough. This one looks like it's gonna be pretty rough. With the bolts breaking off and shearing so easily, there's either a manufacturing design flaw. So whatever engineer decided to use this specific metal, I'd be very curious. Any of you guys out there that are watching this know what the ASCII value of these bolts are? If they're like using 4042 or something, because they're incredibly, they seem like they're incredibly high carbon steel, which if you want a real strong bolt for, say, you know, your flywheel or your torque plate or something like that, I understand that. You don't want that to go flying off, but you don't want your bolts to literally just break in everyday use, and this is a common issue. So, and I know this one right here, I barely put any force on it and it just popped. This one right here, I put quite a bit of force on it, and you know, breaker bar, more power, more broken. So we'll go ahead and we'll try to get each one of these out, but it's definitely, to me, it seems like a design flaw from whoever engineered it, but neither here nor there. We got to get them out anyways, so let's keep working. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. I have all the bolts out except for one on this side and all of them out on this side. You can definitely tell I haven't welded in a very long time. Also, I should probably go and buy myself a mask, because right now all I'm doing is putting this down to shield my eyes, and so I really can't see what I'm doing, and my welds have definitely suffered for it. But we got 5 of them out using the welding method. We got 1 of them out with just pure luck. The bolts held on, which I don't know where that one ended up. Oh, it's on the ground right here. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts sheared off. Now, this one right here was so far down, I couldn't get an actual nut on it and actually get a thread. So what I did was I put a weld in it around. Then I put a bolt, or a nut that was the next size up right over it. And it was just snug enough because of my weld to sit on it. And then all I did from there was I plug welded. And it, I don't know, for some reason I was recording, but it didn't take. I threw my breaker bar on it, didn't budge, and all of a sudden it felt like it was moving like all the other ones, and then all it did was just shear off. So if we're going to reuse this head, we're going to go ahead and have a machine shop take that out. But otherwise, we're all set. I actually, maybe it's a weird thing that I do, but I don't like having spark plugs just sitting out. There's junk spark plugs anyways, but all I did was I just knocked off the edges of them, so you have something blocking the entryways inside the actual cylinders. So the next thing is, I'm going to take my helmet off. One, get myself a visor, so especially when I'm doing the frame, I can't be, not looking at my welds. I got to really be paying attention. 2, I got to sort out some things on this welder. I think I may have figured out what's wrong with it, but until then, oh, and it leaks argon gas like a bastard. So we are going to have to get that sorted out. And then a little bit later today, because I need to go and finish making my dinner, which I'll sneak a little video like what it looks like. I'm very excited about it. But anywho, nothing more than getting a fat guy some food. I love food. Anyways, we got to get that out. I'm probably gonna just have a machine shop do that one. But all the other ones came out. So I was thinking in my, I don't know what had it bolt. Okay, here it is. So I love, one of my favorite classes back in school was mechanical engineering, well, not mechanical engineering, it was materials engineering and statics and dynamics. That one was a fun class. But materials engineering, my teacher was nuts. It was his last year teaching, so he really didn't care. So he allowed us to take, I was working at Radio Shack at the time, may they rest in peace. But people would buy phones and they'd just recycle their phones. You'd be like, do you want it? And I'd be like, sure. So I'd take it to material engineering classes. We would put them in the machines that, we would be putting different types of value, like ASCII value metals, whether it was 4042, 6061 aluminum, see what their stretch was for, they sheared, all that fun stuff. Anyways, he let us take a phone and put it in this 600,000 ton press. And I basically turned it just into the base plastic. Totally nuts. Anyways, so we would go through and you'd pull, steel bars, you'd pull them apart, twist them apart and all that fun stuff. And I was thinking while I was welding one of them on and getting ready to take it off, the reason why these are shearing, and I'm sure someone already figured this out, but the reason why this is shearing is not because it's too hard of steel. No, I would make the argument that it's because they use bolts and not studs. So these are probably already pre-stretched when they put them in, kind of like ARP studs are pre-stretched. So when you put it in there and you put a nut in there, even you have it torqued down, it will still stretch a tiny bit. I have a feeling that these were pre-stretched, popped in, because if they're not pre-stretched, you have to get them to temperature, and then you have to torque them down again. So if these are pre-stretched and they put in, they're at their breaking point already. So the moment, actually one of the ones that I broke, I think I still have the head kicking around here. You know what? I think it's over here. Yeah, it's right here. The moment you actually get the stress in the crystalline structure, I don't know how well you guys can see this. Come on, there you go. Come on, focus, you bastard. But you can kind of see it. There's a pinch right there. And you also have a clean break right where the thread is. So I have a feeling it's the actual manufacturing of these, and they're pre-stretched, and then when they go through their heating cycle, eventually you get bad batches and they just pop. Like, I don't know if you ever did the little popping the heads off of the dandelions at people, just like that. So I have a feeling it's still bad engineering, which is crazy for such a well-engineered engine that you'd have something overlooked like that, because that's I don't know, maybe it's a GM thing, because I know our 8.1 Vortec, half the bolts on their exhaust manifolds are also popped off. So I don't know. All I know is we're going to replace all the things inside here with ARP studs, because we don't want this thing pulling itself apart. Especially when we slap those Chinese choo-choos on here. You know, those Chinese hair dryers. Now, we'll probably go for a good brand one if we can afford it at the time. But, you know, we got to go with what we got. And the next thing really is, look forward to us pulling the front end off, the front off this right here. I want to go with an electric water pump, and I would like, if I can afford it at the time, if we can switch this over to a dry sump, that would be phenomenal. I really love electric fuel pumps. They remind me of like the P-51 Mustangs, because if you ever watch a video of one of them starting up, you got all those buttons and everything, you prime the oil, it goes woo! So it'd be really cool to kind of make this feel like a World War II era jet fighter, or not jet fighter, I guess piston fired jet fighter, whatever, fighter plane. So anyways, that's it for today. I'm losing my voice. Have yourselves a wonderful day. That is very bright. You have a glorious night. Take care. Good.